Justice Stats, Reggie Johnson, Eugene Morgan coming to you from the lovely city of Atlanta, Georgia in this 2025 year. New season here of the show, and we have some fireworks here. Let's go ahead and bring on, let's go ahead and go full screen here for the people, for our Georgia fans here. Let's get a good look at our guy, Carson Beck here in that nice orange, Miami orange here for you dog fans. Now, what's interesting here is not too long ago, he tweeted out that he was entering the draft. When I say not too long ago, I think like 2 days ago. About 2 or 3 days ago, he said he was entering the draft, right?
It may be a little longer now, but it felt like it was really
it's been quick. About a week, right? I mean, less than a week, right? Roughly there, it's got to be about a weekish or so.
Yeah.
What a difference a few days here makes, because I don't know if he looked at the draft prospects and said, because the Miami deal was reportedly supposed to be worth about $4 million NIL money for him. I don't know if he was looking at where he felt he would go and was thinking, man, I might just need to go back and get this little money. His girl, he dates one of the Cavender twins. She's already there. She plays basketball there. Go join your girl. Go make a few $million.
Right.
Drive that Lambo around the Miami campus before you go hold a clipboard at the next level. Why not?
Right.
Why not? What else is he supposed to do? Now, what are your thoughts here as a Georgia fan? Because I know you Georgia fans, we wanted them out of there anyway from what I was hearing. What are your thoughts? What were your thoughts when you heard? So when you saw the tweet that he was going to be going to the NFL draft, what were your thoughts then? And then we'll get to this.
Oh, I thought it was a mistake. I thought there was no way. There's no way he was going to be, because he came out as probably like before the start of the of college season. They were projecting him to be in that number one, kind of that one of those top tier quarterbacks, and he has not performed that way for the whole year. And so I think it's smart for him. He probably, got his draft grade and was like, man, why would I want to go second level? Maybe be into that third or fourth, maybe he get in the second round, maybe, because there's not a lot of talent in the quarterback coming out this year. So he could probably, like you said, when you could start talking yourself into quarterbacks, since there's so many teams that need quarterbacks, I can see him going in the first round or second round. I wouldn't have been surprised, just because teams would be desperate and be reaching, but smart move on his part, I mean, especially now with all the NIL money, it's like, why? It's like I think I said this. I think I said another one where he's like, here's a player. I think it was Levis. Well, Levis is making over $900,000 this year on a rookie contract. Why not just go back?
Forget that. Forget that. Let me get my $4 million, because we already know this. I'll tell you that. If that's what we'll have, we look at where these draft picks are going, these rookie contracts, and see where you're being where you're going to be drafted, it's easy to see the money. So if you got to think about where the money you're going to be paid. You look at the draft pick and you say, with where I am projected to go, am I expected to make $4 million annually there? If not, I'm going to at least go get this $4 million from Miami before I go into the NFL. Now, it's interesting because according to Miami sportscaster Josh Moser, Beck's NIL deal with Miami is reportedly $4 million. That would place Beck in the top 5 highest valuations in college football, headlined by Texas quarterback Arch Manning and Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders, who, of course, is going to the NFL. So initially, I guess last year when Beck first came into the league, he had led the SEC, finished third nationally in passing yards. He had 39-41 with 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. However, this season he had 34-85 on the yards, 28 touchdowns, and a career high 12 interceptions, which is double, right? Double from his last year. He didn't double his touchdowns, but he definitely doubled. So he had regression on the interception rate. He had regression on the yards. People that I talked to in Georgia were ready to run him out of town. So this is probably, they were, man. A lot of people I talked to in Georgia really down on him. They didn't even think he's going to get drafted at all. When I would talk to some of my Georgia friends, they're like, he's not getting drafted, period. Like, wow, not getting drafted. I thought somebody might jump up and get desperate.
Somebody would have drafted him.
About these QBs.
I mean, we also got to take into context that he did lose 2 pretty big weapons that have been pretty impactful on Sundays. I mean, he lost Brock Bowers and he lost Ladd McConkey. And those guys have been lighting it up on the second level. So, I mean, you could throw that. He did lose some really good running backs, so you're able to mask a lot of that, when you're, doing the play action, so
right.
no, I think it's smart for him to go, dude, go make some money, and not a bad place to go right to Miami.
No, I feel like you got to go
that you could end
someplace
up
and you
in.
say, hey, and look at where he might be getting drafted. Like, could you imagine, like, when you look at where you get drafted, like, I might have to go sit over there and lose, man. I can go over and hang with my girl in Miami, make $4 million. You kidding me? Like, I'm just gonna go do that.
Right. Exactly. Right.
I was watching a guy on YouTube who called this. I wish it was. I don't know if it was like a guy that's a YouTuber. And I don't think his name was like Matt B. Gray. I want to say that's a YouTuber. I want to say that's his name. But there was a YouTuber I watched right after he had said that he was going to transfer. And I watched a YouTube video that same night. And then that same night, this guy called it. He said he's going to Miami, man. He had laid it out. He said they have all this money. Cam Ward is leaving. His girl is there. He was laying it all out, and he ended up being right, man. That is absolutely where he's headed, which is very funny because what do you think then he would be getting drafted at? Like where you go if you project him into the next year's class? Let's just take him out of this class, project him into next year's class. Did he help himself by going back? Obviously, you don't feel like he should have been coming out, so you probably feel he did.
Oh yeah, no, I thought it was a huge mistake he's coming out. I mean, especially because he had so much preseason hype, and then you pretty much fell off the tracks. I mean, I think it's the best move. When I heard he was coming out, I was a mistake. I'm still in the Milroe camp as well. I don't think Milroe should be going out either. I think he should be going either back to Alabama or transferring or whatever. But
somebody's gonna get desperate, man. They're gonna draft these guys, man.
Exactly, and I get that piece of it. So, I mean, why not at least come back, and Miami's, and that's the thing. Miami's known for having, pretty good receivers. They, having, good. That's the thing that's been hurting, Georgia the last couple of years. We just haven't been able to recruit those top end receivers. We're just been lucky in the transfer portal. So this past year, I mean, you could put someone on him, but you could also put someone. His decision making was very slow developing at times, and so I can see why Jordan fans were just frustrated. It's like sometimes you just throw it, just throw the ball.
That's my next question for you. Where do you think So first of all, when do you think it went wrong with Georgia fans, and how did it get to the point where it felt? Because it felt like with me, once it went wrong, he never was able to get back on track. And some of my Texas friends feel the same way about Quinn Ewers, but they felt like it felt like at some point in the season, Carson Beck lost the fandom and never regained it back. What happened there with George from a fan's perspective? Where do you think in the season that happened, and why do you think he was not able to kind of get it back? You don't really see a lot of people shedding a lot of tears about him leaving here.
Yeah, it's just because he started off really well, and then he just had the stinkers. I mean, even the Alabama game. I mean, yeah, he came back, but you could look at he put us. Like Milroe came back and scored, and we were in position to go back and score against Alabama, and he throws just an interception, just a bad interception to if you just would have placed the ball better, had a better ball placement. That's a different play altogether. So it's just you can't really point to one game. I think it's the whole season. Like he would just have glimpses where he would look like he's turning around, like against Ole Miss. Like the first half looked like his typical inconsistent, but again, he looked great in the second half, and then he looked great against Tennessee. But again, we can forget about the SEC championship game because Gunner came in and just lit it up. But if you look at that first half, it was just really bad. So I think you can't really point to one game. It's just the whole season.
I hear this might be a mutual departure too, from what I'm hearing. I'm hearing like the school is like, we want to move on to Gunner, and
no, Eliza, stop.
And Beck also wants to move on. Like Beck wants to move on, and if Beck wants to move on, and the school wants to move on, is there really a problem?
What's that? The problem with
really moving on? If Beck wants to move on and the school wants to move on, I don't think there's really a problem here. Listen, it seems like it's that's the situation. It's like there's a situation where both parties here want to move on. So maybe this is a situation where things just work out for everybody at the end.
Right, and then they just signed another 4-star quarterback too for the up and coming class. So it's the same thing with I think with Ewers. Ewers is not if Ewers doesn't come back, he's transferring because everything's laying out for Arch Manning to be there. So I think it's just one of those things. It's like go and see what else is out there for you, And I wish him luck. I don't have anything bad to say about him. I was just I was frustrated by the inconsistent play. I wasn't like ready to drive him out of town per se, but I can. But at the same time, I was like,
were you happy he wasn't coming back? Were you excited about that? Were you ready to move on to Gunnar Stockton?
I was ready to move on. Yeah, I was ready to see what else to see if Gunnar could be the guy or the upcoming recruit, or if we get a transfer portal or something like that. I'd rather see what else. I mean, just because we got to have just more consistent play, especially in the SEC. You cannot. That's one thing you cannot hurt. It's like the SEC is almost coming like NFL. You can't compete unless you have at least a quarterback.
Maybe that's why all that money's being thrown around out there. It kind of makes sense now when you speak about it like that. Speaking of the NFL, let's talk about our guy, Deshaun Watson, who we've talked about nothing but failure on this show ever since he received this contract. I don't know if we've had a good Deshaun Watson show since he's received this contract. I feel like every show we've done on Deshaun Watson because remember, we loved Deshaun Watson when he played for the Texans. We were doing this show and he played for the Texans. We loved him. Loved him, man. And he comes right. We loved him in Clemson too. So then he comes to the Browns and things are just a disaster.
Yeah.
A disaster. For one, the cloud that you come to the Browns under, right? So you ride in there on that storm cloud and you kind of have to think to yourself, maybe this is what the Browns deserved. You took this storm cloud on. You knew all this bad juju you took on when you took on this contract, and you guaranteed it on top of that. So you kind of like, not only did you take on a contract, you kind of endorse. I wouldn't say you endorse the behavior. That's a bridge too far. But when you have a guy accused of what this guy was accused of, and he comes into the league and you offer him the highest paid, fully guaranteed contract, then you're saying that you don't necessarily mind the allegations, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So here's what you get. I thought you got the karma that came with that contract. You got a guy who looked washed. He never looked like the Clemson Deshaun, never looked like the Texans Deshaun. He looked washed, and he never seemed to regain his footing. You had Jameis Winston come in there, and the Cleveland offense looked competent. All of us, like almost instantaneously, even though he is definitely going to throw some interceptions. At least there was some scoring happening.
Right.
What are your thoughts here on this whole situation? And wait, before you actually go in there, let's tell the people kind of what's going on here. Adam Schefter reported the Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson underwent surgery Thursday after tearing his Achilles again, and his status for the 2025 season is now in jeopardy per league sources. Watson met Thursday with Dr. Robert Anderson before undergoing the surgery. Watson tore his right Achilles tendon October 20th, marking the second straight year his season ended because of injury. We discussed this prior to the show. He has about $48 million. Wait, 46 million, 48. I think it was
46 per season.
46 per season. I think he's got 2 seasons left. I want to say you said he had that 2 seasons, 25 and 26. Disaster. Right? Because 2 seasons means, man. I mean, 1 for sure. We're gonna probably sit you right. 1 year you're gonna go home or something like that. We're gonna find a way. Teams find ways to eat that money now on 1 year. But $100 million is a lot. This is the $92 million you got to kind of work with, what do you do if you're Cleveland here? Like, because now Cleveland's on the clock. We got to think Cleveland might take a quarterback here. I think Cleveland's pick is second currently.
Yep. Their number 2 pick.
How do you not?
How do you not?
If you're Cleveland, how do you not? How do you come out of this draft without taking a quarterback? Especially because with the money that Deshaun's making, if you can get a quarterback on a rookie contract, this is the way to go. This is the only way you can get better at this position. With this albatross of a contract around your neck from Deshaun Watson, you go ahead and get your rookie quarterback on the cheap. You'll have him to see you through those Deshaun Watson years, the rest of the years on that Deshaun Watson contract. That rookie quarterback should be there to see you through those years.
Yep.
You say you bid him adieu next year to Deshaun Watson, and you kind of ride off into the sunset with your new guy. I think that's kind of what you have to do if you're Cleveland. I mean, some people say they might take a Travis Hunter or something like that. I'm seeing that too. And saying they might try to address the quarterback in free agency, but I don't think that's great because if you address quarterback in free agency, you're going to have to pay for one. If like a Sam Darnold coming out, let's say Sam Darnold doesn't resign in Minnesota and he decides to come out and Cleveland wants to try to chase him down. He's gonna, in my opinion, Sam's getting at least 30, in my opinion. And it would not surprise me at all if somebody nails him down for 40, like a
Oh yeah,
3-year
yeah.
120 or something like that. It would not
Yes,
surprise me
not at
whatsoever
all.
if it happens. So that's probably the number you're looking at for Sam Darnold to bring him in there. I don't know what Kirk's gonna take because a lot of people kicking Kirk around. But he's got a year on that contract, right? So if Kirk gets traded to a team, do they have to take that other $40-50 million he has left? Is that how that works?
If he agrees to be traded, so Kurt has a no trade. He has a no trade clause, and
I think he'll waive it to play.
He might, but what everyone's saying is he's not going to. Why would he owe us any favors?
Oh, he doesn't. He doesn't. I feel like he'd be doing himself a favor, is what he'll be doing. Because if you're not at the age that he's at, he can't sit for years, brother. At his age, you can't sit. You're not 26, bro. Or you're not like JJ McCarthy. What, 20? JJ McCarthy could sit for 2 years and be 22. You know what I mean? Like, no, that's not that's not your reality. You sit for a couple years, you're near 40. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like you're gonna have to keep playing, in my opinion. And I think if you're Kirk, it's not necessarily about doing the Falcons a favor. It's about doing myself a favor and not wanting to sit. So I'm going to look at my opportunities. That doesn't mean I get traded anywhere though, Eugene. Like Cleveland. Cleveland, unfortunately, is not necessarily a franchise that people love to come to, unfortunately. It isn't a franchise that people are itching to get to. No. The Browns, anyway. Cavs are setting it on fire right now. The Browns, they're not a franchise they're really willing. A lot of free agents are really willing to come to without having to pull the kind of stunt they kind of pull with Deshaun Watson. That's why they kind of overpay for him to get there. If you're Cleveland, do you do this in free agency or are you handling this in the draft? What is your thoughts? Because some people say they might take Travis Hunter at that second spot.
Well, if you could do so let's just say, because Kurt's going to get cut, I think is it March? It's either March, April, May. I think it's March,
like a certain amount of money.
Yeah, right? That $10 million bonus kicks in. So, so he gets cut, and then maybe you could do like you did with what Pittsburgh did with Russell Wilson. You can get him on that cheap because he's still getting paid. He still gets all that guaranteed money. So you can just do a league minimum deal.
You mean as far as like Kirk being more attractive to teams because the Falcons would be on the hook for the majority of that contract?
Exactly. Yeah, because no team's gonna go, oh, we'll pay you 50 to
no, they're not. No,
right.
Why? And why do that? He's a distressed asset at this point. Like
exactly. So I like that. I like that if Travis is there, which he should be, right? Because Tennessee needs a quarterback.
Yeah, they're Tennessee. If they're done with the Will Levis show, Will Levis wasn't drafted high enough to have job security, and also he hasn't done enough to have job security. We saw now. To me, the Arizona way back in the day when they moved off Josh Rosen after drafting him very early in the first round, and they moved off of him for Kyler Murray. They showed you how teams will move off of you.
Oh, yeah.
And at this rate, I don't see why Tennessee wouldn't, unfortunately, right? I mean, they're terrible. What have they done to say that they should keep Will Levis?
They're terrible.
He hasn't helped their GM.
Right. They just fired their GM. And this is the thing. Hey, and by the way, Reggie and I, we watch enough SEC football. We could have told you Will Levis wasn't going to be a good quarterback. We could have. He's inconsistent.
Well, people were talking about the fact that he was so muscle. They're like, oh, he's such muscle bound. He can throw that thing out there. Yeah, man. He wasn't really
right.
Exactly. I think the guys that came out of that draft were the people that you felt were going to be the guys.
Yes, exactly where they ended up, and exactly where you're seeing them. You're going to see them on milk cartons, or you're going to be one of those things where, oh, Will Levis is starting this week in week 18. And you're like, wow, I didn't realize that guy was still in the league. When you start remember
Will Levis 2,000 yards for the year, Eugene. That cover here. So before I read off all these stats, ladies and gentlemen, if there's any kids you got around, go ahead and put them to bed. Just make sure things aren't on speaker.
Oh, that's horrible.
Covering this up. Turn down the volume here because this is ugly. 2,000 yards, 2,091 yards, 13 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 81 on the quarterback rating. And I was looking to see I'm like, man, how many games did this guy miss? And he didn't miss a ton.
No.
You add that onto the 1,800 he threw for last year. Of course, he didn't. I don't think he started last year.
He didn't start last year. He came in
8 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, and that probably would you saw that 8-4 interception ratio, and you're like, oh man, we might have something here. You come to this year at 13-12 we don't. And that 2,000 yards, he's had games with as low as 95 yards passing and 89 yards passing, 25 yards here. I hope he just got injured there. I'm just giving him the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. No, this is not it. I think they're going to move off him.
Yeah.
I think they're going to move off him. So then you have the Browns here. If they do the Travis Hunter situation, I think it's a mistake. I think the Browns should draft a quarterback personally.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. It's one thing you have to get right in this league, right? You got to keep taking quarterbacks either through free agency, which they don't have any money to. They really don't have the money to go after a free agent quarterback.
They don't. And I feel like the draft is the only way they can address it.
Right.
You got to pay a guy on the cheap. You got to pay him money. You know what I mean? You got to pay him on that scale, because otherwise, I don't see how you're gonna get better, because unfortunately, the NFL has become such a quarterback-driven league that if you know nothing about NFL football and you want to talk it and sound competent, and somebody's asking you if a team is good or not, all you really have to know about football is know the quarterback position. If you know that one position, and then you'll be able to at least sound like you know what you're talking about. You could be like, oh, no, they don't have a quarterback. And that's going to probably be a factual statement. Because if you don't have one in the NFL, if you don't have one in college, forget the NFL. If you don't have one in NCAA now, you're not a contender. You're not a contender.
Or you at least have to have a really good defense and a good offensive line and really good running backs. But again, still, you're not making it you're lucky to make it to the next level. In the playoffs.
Yeah, I think you can pull that in the NCAA, because I think that in NCAA you can at least have teams where you're outmatched from a talent standpoint so much.
Yes,
where you can still get through some of these games, right? And then you don't really run into your quarterback problems until you get to the playoffs and you get to other teams with NFL players on them. In this situation too with the NFL, you just got so many NFL where everybody's in the NFL, but you just have so many teams where when they're not addressing their quarterback position, it makes me wonder how do you take them serious? And that's going to be here with the Giants too. If the Giants don't address their quarterback situation, it'll be a same situation of how can you take this team serious? I think the Browns are definitely going to have to take a quarterback here. Let's go to NBA. We'll talk a little NBA. Yeah, let's go a little Pat Riley, Jimmy Butler here. Pat Riley. Now, I have to say, I might be team Pat here for one reason. One reason, it's a lot of money. Jimmy's owed a lot of money, and he hasn't played. The amount of games I think that contract deserves. If you're making close to $50 million a year, you need to affect winning. In my standpoint.
Yeah,
and I think Jimmy, when he is on the court, deserves the money. Let's just be, in my opinion. I think there's been some regression in some areas, but maybe that's because of the environment. He's just not feeling the environment he's in right now. So maybe he goes to a new environment, and we get the Jimmy that we're kind of used to seeing. We get the kind of playoff kind of Jimmy where we're kind of used to seeing. But at the end of the day, you don't want to have to give a guy more than $48 million to be motivated.
No,
you're gonna be like, hey, bro, we're giving you $48 million. How can you not be motivated? But hey, these athletes are human. What are your thoughts there, Mr. Morton?
I know it's boring to agree with you. I like to stick to Jimmy's side, but it's not hard. You missed a lot of games. I mean, yes, you did take the franchise to finals. Kudos,
absolutely.
And you've had some really good playoff moments after that, but that's been about it, right? I mean, that's been the Jimmy Butler experience at this point.
Also we got to remember, Pat's got 3 chips before you got there, brother. Pat,
right?
If you're Pat, and that's just here. I'm not even counting the Lakers.
You're not even counting Lakers.
I'm not even gonna count the Knicks. You know what I mean? We're not going to count the Knicks. We're not going to count the Lakers, because remember, he was on that. I want to say he was on that Knicks team. No, what's Phil Jackson? That was Phil Jackson that was on that Knicks team. Pat Riley was not on that Knicks team. My bad.
Correct.
Pat Riley, I think, was still coaching. Well, at least going into coaching at that time. So, but that's not counting the previous success that he had. This is just executive success we're counting when I say those rings. 2 with LeBron, right?
Yeah.
1 with Wade and Shaq. We had those rings, those trophies were here. If I am Pat Riley and I have those trophies sitting in here, and I have the model of stability, in the Miami organization, and I have a city like Miami which will recruit for me.
Yeah, exactly. Exact opposite of Cleveland.
I'm gonna be like, yo, get out of here. I'm like, get out. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm taking a hard line. I don't care who the athlete is. I'm taking a hard line because I had chips before you got here. Yeah. And I'm paying you almost $100 million, and you tell me you don't have no joy from being around, like you don't want to be around here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would send you to the crib, and we're gonna move on without you, because at the end of the day, those chips will still be here. We'll still be the Heat. And if you want your legacy, in my opinion, from a Jimmy Butler standpoint, to at least even somewhat, well, for one, it's almost too late, in my opinion. For your legacy, it's going to be nothing near what Pat Riley's legacy is. It's just going to be so. I don't think he has enough years left in the league to just start rattling off of winning chips at that rate. But he would have to at least win a few, at least two. You know what I mean? Before you even start saying, well, Jimmy, he did what he had to do. He left there, because winning solves all. We're talking about loving Pat Riley right now, but if Jimmy leaves and at least wins one or two chips, you're going to say that it was worth it, at least for him, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But the thing is, like we were talking before we got on the show, where's the trade? It's like, where's
the problem, right?
Go? That's the
problem.
issue.
So the Phoenix, I read this article. Let's go ahead and share this article real quick. So according to this site, this is Phoenix Suns site on Sports Illustrated. Suns have contract extension ready for Jimmy Butler. The Phoenix Suns are ready to keep Butler long-term if they acquire him via trade. Now, how do they acquire him via trade?
Exactly. What are they giving up?
Because they got to. Did anybody want that Beal contract? Let me see.
Nobody wants it. And he has no trade.
Suns have a 2-year, from my sources, and I guess this is Big Perk.
Okay.
Big Perk here. Big Perk says from his sources, the Suns have a 2-year, $121 million extension waiting on Jimmy. Kevin Durant wants Jimmy Butler, and if he does get Jimmy Butler, they'll both gonna sign contract extensions.
Okay.
Okay.
Why would, if I'm the Suns, why do I want him? I want another aging star on my team. I already have one. I have Kevin Durant.
First things first, Beal. They gotta move Beal. They can't keep both those. Those. They would have to move Beal.
And by the way, they moved Beal to the bench, by the way. He's coming off the bench. Just FYI. Man, that's a lot of money coming off.
He's on my fantasy team too. And I do not like hearing that. Do not like hearing that whatsoever. But that's kind of like a switch, right? You kind of would have to send Beal to them. You can't have Beal there and Jimmy Butler there.
No.
There's no way. Now they look at the amount of money. Look at that amount of money. Like, you have to do a switch. And I don't think, if you're Miami and I'm getting rid of Butler's money, why do I want Bill's money?
Yeah. Oh, I don't want exactly. That doesn't make that first. It doesn't make sense for the Heat to take on Beal. That doesn't seem like a smart move, especially for a franchise that they're willing to wait. They're like, you know what, we're okay. Well, if we have to, we'll cut bait with Jimmy, whatever. But they're not a team that's going to give up a bad contract for another bad contract. That doesn't make sense for the Heat. We don't see them making moves like that,
Another thing that Butler has also informed teams that he will not be signing a contract extension, which is the death knell. The death knell from trying to trade a player. Right? You agree? This will be a rental, bro. He's gonna hit a free agent now. From what they're saying, and of course, we're just hearing this all hearsay from what's being said. He's not taking that stance with the Suns, but he has been informing other teams, according to reports, that not to trade for him, or that he will not be signing an extension. He told two teams, reportedly, it was the Bucks and the Grizzlies, and this came from Chris Haynes. Chris Haynes said a few teams have been informed not to trade for Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler, and that's the Grizzlies and the Bucks. So they've been told not to even try. So let's think about it. The Grizzlies and Bucks can't try. We already know the teams that have already had Jimmy Butler on them, which is what, like Chicago, Philly, Minnesota. Let's throw those 3 teams in there, right? So that's 5 teams eliminated. So the Heat in there as well. 6 teams eliminated. You got 24 teams that can trade for you. Okay, that's rough.
That's rough.
That's rough, man. You've eliminated about 20% of the league. 20% of the league's eliminated, and then that's not counting the not wanting to sign the extension. The good part about Jimmy Butler is he's Jimmy Butler. Like, that's the great part about it. So if I'm Jimmy Butler, I don't really care. I mean, I got money. I got my massive, amazing looking wine cellar. I can just go down there if I want to and live the rest of my life. I've made over $300 million. So if I'm Jimmy Butler, that's what he has going for him. And he has going for him that he's not like 40. He can squeeze another couple years out of there, man.
He could
squeeze another couple years. We got to see what the injury situation is, but he can get another couple years. And I think teams will always be willing to sign a player like him. We just got to see how the money works out. The money's got to work out, but I don't think that we are done with Butler in the league. I actually have last word on that.
No, I'm just curious. I mean, I've heard like OKC could be an option because they have the draft capital and they're a team that, could be like, cool, you can go after the season. If you help us win a championship, cool. If you don't, we still have a great core. But then you kind of worried about bringing him in to mess up your core. And then maybe New Orleans, because New Orleans does have also the draft capital. And we know Zion's been the talk of trades, but
also on my fantasy team in and out of my lineup as well.
Yeah. I know Houston was kind of in that talk too, but then you have such a good young nucleus with Houston. I don't know, man. I mean, he's a great player, but he's getting to the point where it's like, is he worth it bringing into your locker room and just messing up that chemistry? I mean, or maybe just like, okay, if we really want to bring him in, why don't we just wait out the rest of the summer? Wait till summer to bring him in then. Yeah,
you already know he's not going anywhere. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, man. Wait a minute. I don't have to get draft picks. I can just try bid for him. Why not just do that? That makes smarter sense for me. But there'll be some team that talks himself into him, but I don't. It's almost like I don't see it. I just like there's so many teams, there's so many players during the summer who we thought were getting moved. I mean, this past summer, who thought were getting moved, and like Brandon Ingram, right? Like they're like, shoo, go ahead, go try to find a team. Nobody wanted him. Zach LaVine, nobody wants him. It's these mid-tier contracts.
It's those injuries, man, and those injuries. It's where those contracts don't match those injuries, and there lies the problem. So for all those guys that you named, they have one. There's one common factor with all those guys you named. They're guys who have big contracts with injury issues.
Right. Those mid-tier contracts, you're like, okay, it's great, but man, it just cripples your payroll, and it kills
because they're not participating.
They're not participating.
They're not playing.
Right. No. Look good at street clothes.
Right. You need to probably, if you want to win games, you probably want to use your money on players that are going to play the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's kind of part of it. Was it availability is the best, right? That's what we always say.
Availability is the best ability, man. And I think that they got some availability problems, guys, that you were naming, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, they'll find a team, but Miami's not going to make themselves worse. I mean, I think you're right. They'll say, hey, just go to your summer house for the rest of the year. We'll be fine. You go over there and we'll see if we can work something out.
Absolutely. I think we just go. If I'm Jimmy, I'm gonna go sit down.
Yeah.
You guys work it out. Go sip my mini wines that I have until you guys figure this thing out and summon me in. Absolutely.
Right. And Miami's like, cool. We still have a good team. Tyler Hero has been lining it up. I mean,
from chemistry wise, you don't want it in the locker room. In my opinion, bad attitudes in the locker room, they have to go. In my opinion, I don't care who the player is. Send them home because you don't want that lingering. Your teammates having to answer questions for you all the time in the press conference, taking up so much attention. People just want to be able to focus and do their jobs every day, man. And this can be a distraction.
Right. Exactly.
This is Just Stats. Check us out. Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. See you next time.